Why my CKD and CVD did not come back. Number 1621, the 2nd of May 2026, Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation, category CKD, CVD. Special note, this research journal is based on my personal research using data from my own body and is provided for educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice and should not be interpreted as guidance from medical professionals. Preface, a story about structure, not effort. And in 1999, a civil engineer, David Phillips, noticed a promotion offering 500 frequent flyer miles for every 10 product barcodes submitted. With a limited time bonus that doubled the miles before the deadline, most people followed the obvious path. They bought regular products, collected a small number of labels, and received a small reward from airline companies. He did not follow the surface rule. He examined the structure behind the rule. He realized that the reward was tied to the number of barcodes, not the cost of the product. This small difference completely changed the game. He identified the cheapest qualifying product, individual pudding cups priced at approximately 25 cents each. At this rate, $2.50 of purchases could generate 1,000 airline miles, while the airline internally valued those miles at around $20. He acted on this structural insight. He drove across multiple stores and purchased more than 12,000 pudding cups. To handle the large volume of barcodes within the limited time, he collaborated with the Salvation Army. He donated the food, which helped feed people in need, while volunteers assisted in collecting the labels. He also received a tax deduction of $815 from the donation. After submitting all the barcodes, he waited through a period of uncertainty. Eventually, he received 1,253,000 frequent flyer miles, lifetime elite status, and a total travel value estimated at approximately $150,000. Over the following years, he traveled to more than 40 countries. With a final net cost of only about $2,300, he did not work harder. He understood the system correctly. Most people follow the formula. A few people examine the structure that creates the formula. He optimized a system rule by identifying the true governing variable and minimizing cost per unit of reward. After reading this story, I reflected on my own medical research methodology. I realized that I follow the same underlying principle. I do not try to optimize a fixed, known rule. Instead, I step back and examine the structure that generates that rule. In my medical research work, I moved away from a statistics-dependent, population-based pathophysiological system. Instead of refining its outputs, I redefined its internal structure. I shifted the focus from population averages to an individual system's breaking point, from disease probability to disease mechanism, and from static snapshots to time-dependent movie-like trajectories. Over the past 17 years, I have applied the structural thinking to chronic diseases, including obesity, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, stroke, seizures, CKD, and CVD. Instead of focusing on individual numbers, I focused on the interactions among influential factors, the accumulation of energy over time, the geometric shape and its moving direction, and the longitudinal trajectory of the system. Through this structural, system-based approach, I can explain the root cause of why my CKD and CVD have not returned over the past 14 years. Introduction. Purpose of this paper. The purpose of this paper is to explain, using long-term data and system-based analysis, why my chronic kidney disease CKD and cardiovascular disease CVD have not reoccurred over the past 14 years. I will present two disease-specific cases, followed by a comparison of their behaviors and modeling approaches, to demonstrate that this observed stability is not accidental but the result of long-term, lifestyle-driven system improvement without medication intervention. My CVD case. At the end of this article, the bottom figure shows the relationship between my TSI-CardioRenal risk proxy values and my cardiovascular disease CVD risks based on my 12-year metabolism. Indices me from the 1st of May 2015 to 5/1/2026. The blue curve represents me base CVD risk, while the green curve represents that CKD index. As described in the appendix section, that C model uses three inputs: BMI divided by 25, systolic blood pressure SBP divided by 120, and glucose divided by 100 multiplied together and then amplified by a factor of 70 over time. The Me-based CVD risk shows a clear downward trend from a relatively high level 63% to a moderate and stable level 35%. The cardiorenal curve follows a similar trajectory, from 101 to 59, with an average TSI of 72. The correlation between the two is approximately 61%, indicating that the TSI model with BMI, SBP, and glucose only captures the dominant behavior of cardiovascular risk. From a medical history perspective, I experienced cardiovascular issues 5 times between 1994 and 2004. However, for more than 22 years since then, no recurrence has occurred. My recent medical examination confirmed that all heart-related biomarkers are within normal ranges. This indicates that the system has transitioned from a high-risk state to a stable state. My CKD case, the top figure shows the relationship between my TSI-CardioRenal index and my ME-based chronic kidney disease CKD risk over the same period. Again, the blue curve represents CKD risk and the green curve represents TSI. The overall trend is similar to the CVD case, with a clear reduction in risk level over time. The correlation between ME-based CKD risk and TSI is approximately 68%, which is slightly higher than the 61% correlation observed for CVD. My CKD condition was most evident between 2010 and 2015. Since 2016, there has been no recurrence over the past 10 years. My recent clinical checkup confirmed that all kidney-related biomarkers are within normal and healthy ranges. This provides both data-driven and clinical validation of long-term stability. Similarity between CVD and CKD. Although CVD and CKD affect different organs, their long-term behavior in my data is highly similar. Both curves show a transition from higher risk to lower risk. A similar downward trajectory over time, stabilization at a moderate level without rebound. This similarity is not accidental. Both diseases are strongly linked to diabetes and metabolic conditions. Glucose serves as the primary damaging factor, while body weight contributes to the development of diabetes. Blood pressure plays a secondary role. During the period from the 1st of January 2010 through the 1st of January 2016, -1 BMI decreased from 30.5 to 25.5. And my daily average glucose decreased from 278 mg DL to 119 mg DL. Therefore, both CKD and CVD respond to the same underlying metabolic system improvement. Similarity between TSI and metabolism-based model. I also compared the TSI model with my earlier metabolism index ME-based risk model. The metabolism model includes 10 inputs M1 M10, including for biomarkers such as weight, glucose, blood pressure, and lipids, and 6 lifestyle factors such as diet, exercise, hydration, sleep, stress, and long-term behavioral consistency. Each factor is assigned a different weighting coefficient, and the overall ME-based risk is calculated using an additive structure rather than the multiplicative structure used in TSI. In contrast, the TSI model uses only 3 key biomarkers and applies a multiplicative structure, making it much simpler than the 10-input ME-based additive model. Despite these modeling differences, the resulting risk curves from both models are highly similar in pattern and trajectory, as demonstrated by correlations of 61% and 68%. The absolute values may differ, but the directional movement remains consistent. This indicates that the system behavior is dominated by 2 key variables, body weight and glucose. The interaction among the 3 input variables in the TSI proxy, through multiplication, captures similar dynamics as the weighted addition used in the ME-based risk model. The long-term trend is robust across different modeling approaches. Conclusion: my heart problem and kidney issue have not reoccurred over the past 10 to 15 years. The reason is straightforward. My lifestyle has improved over time. As a result, the primary biomarkers, especially glucose and body weight, have also improved significantly. It should be emphasized that during this long period of 17 years, I did not take any medications, not even vitamins. Although my system is not completely free of damage, the overall risk level has been reduced to approximately 50%. At this level, there are no obvious symptoms of mortality-related diseases associated with my heart and kidneys, and these 2 systems, cardiovascular and renal, remain stable. Both modeling approaches and clinical observations lead to the same conclusion: the diseases did not come back because my underlying system has changed. It is interesting that the correlation for CKD 68% was higher than for CVD 61%. This makes sense pathophysiologically, as the kidneys are notoriously sensitive to the direct pressure and sugar hemodynamic and metabolic environment. whereas cardiovascular events can sometimes be influenced by more stochastic random factors like plaque rupture. My paper effectively argues that health is an architectural problem. I didn't just fix leak problem a symptom, I have reinforced the foundation and changed the plumbing system, the metabolic system. The results documented over nearly 2 decades speak for themselves. Appendix: TSI-CardioRenal proxy CKD equals BMI 25x SBP 120x glucose 100x amplifier, where the amplifier is defined as 50 for diabetes less than 10 years, 60 for diabetes between 11 to 20 years, 70 for diabetes more than 20 years. With regard to TSI values, if TSI is less than 90, you are safe. If TSI is between 90 and 99, you are still safe. If TSI is between 100 and 109, you should be cautious about your risk. If TSI is greater than 110, you are entering the dangerous zone. Epilogue: from a coupon story to biomedical system insight. After completing this analysis, I was reminded of a story about a civil engineer, David Phillips, who turned a simple food coupon promotion into more than 1 million airline miles. At first glance, this story seems unrelated to medicine. It is about coupons, cheap food, and airline rewards. But when I read it more carefully, my attention shifted to a different question. Why did he think that way? Most people saw the promotion and followed the surface rule. They bought products, collected a few labels, and received a small benefit. He did something different. He looked at the structure behind the rule. He identified the true driver of the system, which was the number of barcodes, not the cost of the product. Once he saw that structure, the solution became obvious. When I reflected on this story, I realized that my thinking process in medical research follows a similar path. The similarity is not because we are both engineers. The similarity comes from focusing on structure and the overall system rather than the surface, and from asking what truly drives the outcome. At the same time, there is an important difference. His problem was a fixed system with a clear rule, and his goal was to optimize within that system. My problem is a complex and dynamic biomedical system, where the rules are not explicitly given, and the goal is not optimization alone, but long-term stability and survival. This perspective led me to re-examine my own health question. Why did my CVD and CKD disappear and not come back? If I only looked at individual numbers, such as glucose or blood pressure, I would not find a complete answer. But when I examine the system structure, including interaction among influential variables, time-dependent behavior, and accumulated metabolic stress, the answer became clearer. I did not simply reduce individual risk factors. I changed the biomedical system that generates those mortality risks. This realization connects a simple coupon story to a much deeper principle. Whether in a marketing promotion or a biomedical system, the outcome is determined not by effort alone, but by understanding the structure behind the system. That is the common thread between his story and my research work, and that is the reason why my CKD and CVD have not come back. I have mastered my own pudding cup system. There is no reason to follow those who are still paying full price for the flight. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No. Doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to T.I. author, Gerald C. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.